Happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. Happy Mother's Day, especially to my wife and to my mom, who is probably watching right now from Tennessee. I hope you guys all have an amazing day and feel loved and celebrated. Yesterday, in a period of about 3 hours, my son, who turned 5 last week, he told my wife that first, she is good at relaxing. Then he asked her why her legs are so prickly right now. And for his grand finale, all within 3 hours, he had a massive, messy accident in his room. I'll leave it at that. I'm not a gambling man, but I think if you go to the horse races, I think that's called a trifecta of beauty and just a great Mother's Day weekend. And so, when we find this time to honor moms and Mother's Day comes around, it's an interesting thing. It's delicate. It's challenging, like Ez referenced earlier. It's not easy for all of us. Some of us have grief associated with it. Some of us have pain or past hurts associated with it. Some of us, it's a day full of celebration. And so when it comes time to celebrate Mother's Day as a church, it can be a really unique thing. And maybe you've experienced that as well. It can actually be difficult, I think, because lots of times the moms that I know, they have a hard time even receiving the affirmations we say about them. We say these things that we believe are true, and it's difficult because I don't know if they always actually receive that, and I think part of that might be because some of us only say those things to moms once a year. We'll talk a little bit about that later on, but there's this reality that it's hard to believe these things when you only hear the positive every once in a while, but you're always combating with these other expectations and these images and these other messages every single day. It's very unbalanced in that way. Um, it's Mother's Day, so a lot of what I say is going to take on kind of that specific flavor to moms. But this isn't just for moms. Today's message, obviously, it pertains to moms, but it also really it pertains to women in general. And if it pertains to women, then we know it also pertains to men because we live our lives around women. And there's things that this pertains to community and relationships. And so I'll probably use the phrase Mother's Day and moms and women often, but please don't check out because, especially for the husbands and for the men in the room, this may be as important or even more so important than it is for the moms today. And so I want to make sure that everybody gets a chance to hear this. There's so much pressure on women to perform in very specific ways. There's so many expectations on really all of us, but especially for women. They just feel a very unique pressure that men don't feel. There's expectations as a Christian woman, as a Christian wife, as a Christian mom. But even if you aren't a Jesus follower, if you're still figuring out what you believe in that way, we're all aware of the massive expectations that are placed on women. To act a certain way, to look a certain way, to do certain things and to not do other things, to be a certain kind of mom, to be a certain kind of wife. There's all these expectations, and I don't even have to fill in the blanks because you are aware of them. And I don't want to give you any new ideas that you feel like you have to live up to. There is just a tremendous amount of weight that people put on women, that women put on themselves, and men feel the same thing in different ways. But these expectations that we all start to feel weighed down by and this burden on our shoulders, there seems to be an ever-growing list of what you need to do or who you need to become in order to be worthy, worthwhile, or enough. There's just this list that kind of continues growing. There's nothing that has changed from 40 years ago. We didn't get to stop doing what our parents and our grandparents did. We've just added new things to the list. You have to make home cooked meals and have family dinner time and all these types of things, and also figure out how to balance technology and conversations and school and sports. And the list just continues to grow and grow and grow. And the feeling is so heavy and strong that if you can't do these things well, or if you can't at least do them as good as the other people that you see in the school pickup line, that somehow you aren't quite worthwhile, you aren't quite enough. this pressure continues to grow. And so today I want to look at a passage that some of you may be familiar with. And even as I say this passage, some of you may even roll your eyes a little bit. We're going to look at Proverbs 31, which is a very commonly used passage, especially on Mother's Day. And I tend to be the type of person that if it's a commonly used passage on a specific day, then I do everything I can to avoid it. But I want to talk about this. And like I said, some of you may hear we're going to talk about Proverbs 31, and you may be excited because you love this passage. Some of you may hear this and you may kind of roll your eyes a little bit because this passage feels, again, like these weird expectations and this burden that you're supposed to meet up to. Some of you hear it and it means nothing to you because you've not heard this passage before, and it's going to be a fascinating day for you as well, because the reality is that in this passage there's a poem that has come to be known as the Proverbs 31 woman, or as people, when I was in Christian college, we couldn't say all those words, so we called it the P31. That's a real story. That's what guys did at Christian colleges. They're still terrible, just in different ways. So Proverbs 31 woman, this title, this idea, it may seem innocent and simple enough, but it's actually an incredibly complex collection of verses for a lot of women. For a lot of people. This is one of those passages that at times people have used these verses as a weapon. People have used these verses to kind of push people away or to keep people down or to kind of put people in their place. And if there's one thing that I know for sure is that God is not intending for his words to be used as a weapon. That is not at all what his intentions are. And the evangelical Christian subculture, which I grew up in, and some of you guys grew up in churches, the Proverbs 31 woman was basically kind of idolized and venerated as like this ultimate goal. Like you have to achieve these things if you want to be a Christian woman, if you want to be a godly wife or mother. For many in the Christian tradition, it's become kind of this other set of expectations. That you as a woman, as a wife, as a mother, that you need to live up to this set of expectations. You have to be able to do these things in order to be worthy, worthwhile, enough, valuable. And so I thought for Mother's Day I would read this list. No, we're gonna look at it because like I said, in college, men always talked about how they're looking for a P31. Women would have these groups about how to become a Proverbs 31 woman. There's actually a book. I saw this week as I was doing some research. There's a book, kid you not, that is titled How to Become a Proverbs 31 Woman in 90 Days. So if anybody's interested, there's a ton of resources out there. I don't know that I would encourage that one. Even last night, a friend was sharing that on some of the dating apps that she's seen, that Christian guys will put in their profile that they are looking for a P31 woman. This phrase, this idea is, again, it's a measuring stick. It's a set of expectations that has become really twisted in what its original use was. And instead of becoming something that we're going to look at, which is really beautiful and incredible, it's actually become a burden. It's become another set of expectations. It's become another reason for women to feel like they are not enough, like they can't quite do it, that they're not as good as others. And it's a really sad thing. So whether you're familiar with the passage or you're hearing it for the first time, I want to jump in and we're going to see what all the hype is about. We're going to read a lot of verses, and it's comical. Again, if you keep in mind, this is kind of even like, this isn't like a 2,000 years ago thing. This is over the last 100 years, this passage and these verses have become the bar for the minimum of what it means to be a godly woman. And so we're going to jump in. Proverbs 31, verse 10. Who can find a virtuous and capable wife? She is more precious than rubies. Starts off strong. Her husband can trust her. It's nice. And she will greatly enrich his life. She brings him good, not harm, all the days of her life. She finds wool and flax and busily spins it. So right away, at least 90% of you guys are out. It goes on, it says, she is like a merchant's ship, bringing her food from afar. She gets up before dawn to prepare breakfast for her house. Okay, I'm back in. I understand it now. I'm just kidding. She gets up before dawn to prepare breakfast for her household and plan the day's work for her servant girls. She goes to inspect a field and buys it. With her earrings, she plants a vineyard. She is energetic and strong, a hard worker. She makes sure that her dealings are profitable. Her lamp burns late into the night. Her hands are busy spinning thread, her fingers twisting fiber. It goes on, we're not done yet. She extends a helping hand to the poor ones and opens her arm to the needy. So it's not only that she is caring for her own family, but she also is now caring for other people's families as well. She has no fear of winter for her household, for everyone lives in Orange County. I'm just kidding. For everyone has warm clothes. She makes her own bedspreads. Come on. She dresses in fine linen and purple gowns. Her husband is well known at the city gates where he sits with other civic leaders. She makes belted linen garments and sashes to sell to the merchants. I hope you guys are writing these things down. This is the minimum of what you need to be able to do. She is clothed with strength and dignity, and she laughs without fear of the future. When she speaks, her words are wise, and she gives instructions with kindness. She carefully watches everything in her household and suffers nothing from laziness. Her children stand and bless her. Her husband praises her. There are many virtuous and capable women in the world, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceptive and beauty does not last, but a woman who fears the Lord will be greatly praised. Reward her for all she has done. Let her deeds publicly declare her praise. So a lot of verses there. There's a lot of things that you may be chuckling at and rolling your eyes at. Some of you guys, some of you moms out there are like, yeah, I actually already do more than what this list says. Like I already feel more tired than what this outlines. Some of these things don't make any sense at all. Very few of us are planting crops with our earrings, and there's all kinds of things in here. But this is a beautiful poem, and over the years, this poem has been used as the baseline. Over the years, not its intended original use, but over the years, it's been used as the baseline of you have to at least be able to do this to be a good Christian woman. You have to at least be able to do this to be able to be enough. If you can't do these things, then you're falling short. This poem has been used as a baseline to help women understand how they can be worthy. And even if you aren't familiar with this passage or the Bible or the Christian faith, you still understand the idea of having someone else set expectations that you need to meet that feel completely unattainable. Maybe it's somebody that you know, maybe it's a parent or a friend, maybe it's other people in your life, neighborhoods, schools. Maybe it's somebody that you don't know and you follow them on Instagram, and still somehow, even though they don't know your name and they've never seen your face, they can make you feel so small. They can make you feel like you are not enough because you are comparing yourself to them and to the expectations of what they are achieving and living up to. We all understand what that feels like. Even men understand that, these expectations that don't make any sense for us. And in the same way, Proverbs 31 has been used as a measuring stick to see if you are essentially worthy, if you've done enough, if you are deserving of praise. Again, it's not the way it was originally written, but over the last 100 years. So this was written way over 2,000 years ago. And just over the last 100 years, we've twisted it to be this totally different thing. That instead of being a gift and this thing of beauty, it's become this burden and this weight of expectations. The first phrase is probably the most well-known. It says, "Who can find a virtuous and capable wife?" Now, this was originally written in Hebrew, and sometimes it's a little bit tricky to translate from Hebrew into English. And this phrase specifically, there's probably 20 different ways in different Bible translations that it's translated. Some of them say, "Who can find a good wife?" Some of them say, "Who can find an excellent wife?" Some say, "Who can find a worthy woman?" There's one translation that literally says, "Who can find a competent wife?" Which is just beautiful. I mean, please don't write that on your Mother's Day cards to your spouses today, you guys. Who can find a competent wife? Like, just if you're at least competent, then that is enough. Most scholars seem to think that the Hebrew word, and I'm going to say this slowly because you and anyone else in the room will think that I am cussing. The Hebrew phrase that they are trying to translate is ESHET, SHET, CHAYIL. I would ask you to say it with me, but I don't want your kids to think that you're cussing while you're at church. It's translated, ESHET CHAYIL is translated as valorous woman. Now, the word valorous isn't necessarily something that we use frequently, but obviously it's where we get this idea of valor comes from. So we have some people translating it as competent or capable, but the most accurate way to understand it is that it is a woman of valor. And it's interesting because the scholars have figured out that this poem, this passage of Proverbs 31, it's really closely resembling other heroic poems from that time that celebrated the skill of a warrior in battle. And so you have all of these poems, and men obviously were in control all the time at this point. And so all of the poems about them were just over the top, like, check out how we destroyed them, and nobody is better with a sword than I am. I mean, just writing these heroic poems of their valor. And this passage was written specifically to emulate this heroic battle, this kind of militaristic language. A woman of valor is what the author is wanting us to understand. Not a capable woman, not someone who is good enough. They're saying she is already a woman of valor. Some of the nuances in the original language, there's a line that says she provides food for her family. That's how it's translated in our English translations. But the actual phrase is that she provides prey for her family, as if this idea of her going out on the hunt. It says her husband lacks nothing of value. I'm not making this up, but the most accurate translation is her husband lacks no booty. So happy Mother's Day. They're talking about treasure, this idea that she has gone out and conquered and brought back treasure or booty in a pirate's sense to her home. Again, this kind of militaristic valor type of language. It says she watches over the affairs of the household. The more accurate translation is that she spies, not because she's shady, but because she's always watching to make sure that things are being done well. It says she can laugh at the days to come. The closer translation would be that she laughs in victory. This idea that she is enough and capable and strong, and she laughs in victory before the next day even comes. This whole passage wasn't written, this poem wasn't written 2,000 plus years ago as a standard for this baseline for women to meet. This poem was written to celebrate the women of valor in all that they already do. And it's giving a massive list of all the different examples. It's not to be a capable wife or to be a competent wife or a virtuous wife, you need to do these things. These are the types of things that you do because you already are a woman of valor. Essentially, this poem is intended to communicate that you, women, wives, moms, are a hero. You are a woman of valor. And it may not always feel that way, but this is one of those times where our feelings don't get to dictate who we are. This poem is packed with all types of imagery. And actually, in Hebrew, a lot of times they would write these poems, and there was some kind of different techniques that they would use to have these subliminal, I didn't say that word right, subliminal messages. So the entire poem in the Hebrew language is actually an acrostic. The first word of each verse begins with a letter from the Hebrew alphabet in succession. And the writers would do this to show that it is complete, that the poem is whole, that everything is in there as it should be. It communicates this sense of fullness or totality. And the poem is intended to praise the everyday achievements of a Jewish woman. It's meant to praise the day in, day out types of things that women do that don't get appreciated enough. It's meant to praise the types of things that moms do while their husbands are sleeping because somebody has to get it done. And so they're up finishing the projects or starting them early or whatever it might be. It's meant to praise the everyday realities of what you do in your life. It's not meant to give you a list of what you have to do. It's giving examples of all the different ways that women are incredible and a gift to us. A woman who keeps her household functioning day and night by buying and trading, investing, planting, sowing, spindling, managing servants. Sorry, not many of those these days. Extending charity, providing food for the family, preparing for each season. The day in and day out acts of motherhood and being a wife and just being a human, because there's a lot of people that aren't a mother or a wife or maybe even a woman that are doing these things. And it's saying these are acts of valor when you do these things. The intention of this passage is to draw attention to the often overlooked glory of the everyday. It's not to give you another list of things to get done to be good enough. It's to say, look at what you're already doing. It is amazing. You already are crushing it. You are doing so much. You are so valuable and worthy. This is the intended purpose of this poem. Like I said, we've gotten it twisted over the last 100 years or so, and we've missed the goal. Oftentimes the church has taught this as a prescription for women to follow, kind of this list to be measured by. There's actually only one command in this poem. There's only one kind of instructional passage in this poem, and it's to husbands. It says, the husband to honor their wives for all their hands have done. The only command, the only person that has any sort of responsibility in this poem is the husband. And it's to honor their wives for all they've done. It's to honor the women for what they do, the everyday that they do in and out, the way that they are already a woman of valor, already valuable, that they are enough, that they are worthy. When this poem was written, nobody expected women to read it. Women most often actually couldn't even read. This poem was written to men. And the expectation is that men would memorize it. And I kid you not, that on the Sabbath, the end of the week, when they have their family meal with their kids, oftentimes they would have guests in their house for the Sabbath. The expectation is that men would recite this poem, either just the words or there was also a song version of it, at the table in front of their kids and their guests to their wife. It was not written so that women would know what they need to do. It was written so that men would see the everyday valor and work and effort and beauty that women and wives and mothers do in our lives, and that they would acknowledge it. It gave them a list of things to say, because oftentimes we don't quite have the right words. We don't always remember everything that the women in our lives do. It gave them a list of things to say so that they could appropriately bless and honor their wives. That is why this was written. It was not written as a burden for women to carry. It was written as a kick in the pants for men to remember how to honor their wives, how to honor women, how to care for their spouses. And the closest that we get these days is like an annual Instagram post on Mother's Day or on our wife's birthday, where we list some true and beautiful things once a year. And I think that what I would like to invite us to, men and all of us, is understanding that there is a everyday glory that women and wives and mothers do, and that we do not appreciate them enough. And to the moms and the wives and the women that are listening, you don't appreciate it enough for yourself. And part of that is on us as men and as friends and spouses. But part of it is that you need to start to embrace this reality that you are not trying to work to achieve this thing. This passage, it says, it was originally understood as an outline for how a man should affirm and praise his wife, it's now viewed as a task list through which a woman can earn her value, which is the broken way of looking at it. It says, a valorous woman who can find her value is far beyond pearls. At its core, this poem is a blessing, and it was never meant to be earned. None of these things were ever meant to be earned. It was meant to be communicated that it's given unconditionally. Essentially, it's not maybe you will be. The idea of this poem is that you already are. Women, you already are enough. You already are worthy. You already are valuable. Wives, you already are enough. You already are worthy. You already are valuable. Mothers, you already are worthy. You already are enough. You already are valuable. There is not a list or a checklist or a poem or an outline or a job description that you need to live up to in order to be one day. I need you to hear, at least from me, at least one time today, that you already are. That is what Proverbs 31 is meant to communicate. You already are a woman of valor. You are incredible. You are enough. It doesn't take much for us to recognize how much you do, how much you accomplish, the way you do the impossible every single day. It's not meant to be a standard that women have to reach. It's an example of how much in women's and wives' and mothers' lives is already worthy of praise. You are blessed for what you do for your families and for your loved ones, but also before you ever do a single thing, you already are loved. We appreciate all that you do. And even before you did it, you already are enough. We are grateful for everything that you do. And before you did it, you already are valuable and loved. Your worth has nothing to do with what you accomplish. It has everything to do with the way that God made you and designed you and the tiny little acts of bravery that you do every single day. The expectations that have been put on you need to go away. The guilt that you carry, the value that you want to feel, please hear me, that you already are. So the hope of today is that you hear this incredibly clearly, that you are blessed. Moms, wives, women, today we thank you for what you do, but we love you for who you already are. And God feels that same way. I think as a practical approach, one of the interesting things is that women wouldn't recite this passage to other women. It was something that their men were supposed to recite to them. But women would often give this greeting to other women. They wouldn't recite the whole passage, but they would see each other and they would say, "Woman of valor." They would see each other and they would speak that truth out as a greeting, as a blessing. They would encourage each other with this. And I think that's what Ez referred to earlier when she talked about the way that you are caring for each other. This idea of the way that you are already speaking goodness, and women can do this for each other. Kids can do this for their moms, and every relationship, this reality is so crucial. And what does it look like for us to be intentional about the affirmation of women and wives and mothers in our lives? That it's not an annual thing, that it's not a twice a year thing. But what if you learned the song, dads and husbands, and sang it in front of your kids and your neighbors? What if you just set a reminder in your calendar every day to tell your wife something that you appreciate about her, to tell her how much you value her? Friends, and what if you did this for friendships and for siblings and all kinds of, this isn't just limited to moms. What if we actually started to build in this idea of value and encouraging this in each other from the beginning, that people already are, but especially for moms? I uh, I am not cool anymore. I'm 37. I'm going to be 38 soon, and I've kind of passed the ability to be real cool. But on the internet, I've seen this thing lately, this phrase that I'm a big fan of, and I'm going to sound about as old as I can possibly be. The phrase is "gas me up." And I can already hear my wife rolling her eyes in the background. This phrase, gas me up, essentially means how do you pour into someone to get them pumped up, to tell them how incredible they are, to how worthy they are, how valuable they are. Gas them up. Gas them up. This is what we get to do for each other all the time, regardless of who you are, what role you play. But today, on Mother's Day, what does it look like for us to internalize this ridiculous thing? It's silly. I get that that phrase is silly. So I also have a more beautiful one and a more poetic one. One of our friends who's been a part of our church, her name is Christine. I asked her to work up some art for us. And I think that we have a slide of this art piece. It says, "You already are." And it's got a California poppy on it. And we actually we want to make this available to you. We want to give every mom something. And so we've got a few different iPhone and iPad wallpapers. And I think that the chat hosts are going to drop a link in the chat windows. You can also find this by our Instagram profile and things like that. You can download for free these wallpapers. There's a few different options on there, and they're amazing. Christine did an unbelievable job. But I want you to have this as a reminder that you already are. Woman of valor. It's not something to be earned. There's not another set of expectations. You already are worthy, valuable, beautiful, wonderful, enough. We are so grateful. And in fact, there's um, I want to actually print these out for anybody that wants one. And so if you send us a message on social media, I think that there's a link on our website. You can actually register, and if you put your address in there, we will mail you a printed version of this, so that you can put that somewhere in your house or wherever you feel like would be the best place for it. Because men and husbands, we cannot and probably will not say it enough, but that doesn't mean that it's not true. You already are. Let's bow our heads and pray together. Heavenly Father, we thank you for your love. We thank you for the way that you care for us, and that you show us what it means to care for each other, and the way that you generously and unconditionally love us regardless of what we do. And so, God, I pray that today that mothers specifically would feel the deep sense of admiration and love and worth from us. Whatever type of mom they are, whether they are a birth mom or adoptive or grandmom or chosen mom, God, I pray that they would feel this deep sense of love and this reality that they would know that they already are. God, we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, we want to close out our service a little bit differently today. This passage, one of the last phrases that it says is, her children stand and bless her. And so we have asked a bunch of the dads and the kids to submit videos of what they love about their moms. And it's a little bit of a long video. Not everybody was able to submit it in time, and so not everybody will be included on this, but there's a lot of kids and a lot of people on here that are talking about the way that they love their mom. Her children stand and bless her. Her husband praises her. And so what I would love to do is I would love to invite you to watch this video. It's a few minutes long, and this is the way that we're going to end our service, is by honoring and blessing the moms in our lives. And so the tech team here is going to roll that video, and you can check this out, and we'll see you guys next week.